Well everybody, this should be the last Onyx release of 2023 as it is already past the middle of December and I can't see them releasing anything closer to New Year's. This is the Onyx Boox Air 3 and this also marks the 9th release of products within this one calendar year of ours. So how is it different than the Air 3C? Well, there's only two things that make it different honestly. The first thing is that there's no color screen. The second thing is not only is there no color screen, but they don't even give you 300 ppi from the color variant, instead downgrade the experience to 227 ppi. Other than that, it's identical, except it's also heavier. So with that out of the way, let's dive in and see what this oddly timed release of the latest Onyx has in store. First thing we're going to look at is the build. It's not impressive, but it's just the same. It looks the same as all the other units they have. They have the contrasting line. I don't want to downplay it, but I mean, in terms of design elements, they didn't do a contrasting side bezel. They didn't choose maybe a gold or something, or a lighter gunmetal to wrap around the front. It is just more of the exact same design as we've seen countless times before. And in fact, if you put this off to the side, and I brought this in because we're actually going to be weighing them, I'll tell you in a second, it's the same as this as well. And the only thing different is the actual color screen. And in fact, that's the same image. This one's just bigger and in color. So what exactly is different about this unit from the Air 3C? Well, it's actually not color, so that's number one, and it's heavier for some weird reason, and they didn't tell us why, and we have no idea why, because the specs are the exact same. In fact, this should have less things on it because there's no color array filter. So this is 466 grams heavy or light, glass half full, and this one is 436 grams. So between these two, there's 30 grams extra of something on it, and we don't exactly know where or why that is attributed to a heavier weight. Now for the pen. Pretty unimpressive. I'm not really a big fan of the Pen Plus, also because Onyx has gotten rid of the triangle pen and the stock pen that both had not only an eraser at the back, but a side button. This one has no side button, no eraser at the back, and they didn't give you the Pen 2 Pro, which at least has the retractable opposed kind of polarity flipped Wacom receptor at the back. This one is a fairly vanilla pen, all things considered. It looks great, and it does the job, but all things considered, it doesn't have a whole lot of merits. This is the home screen. It is everything you've seen before. I'm not saying that's bad. That's quite good to not confuse people with an absolute overhaul, especially on an Onyx. And what I mean by that is that these guys have such a strong turnover. This is the 9th release of this year. 9. That's this many. Count my fingers. Very few manufacturers do that, and the amount of turnover would be very confusing if they overhauled the overall look of everything you've ever bought. So you buy this and you say, well, when I drop down, it looks completely different. They're using a different OS. They keep it rather blanket, and that's a good thing because it doesn't shock you when you get into your new unit that you have to repurchase because of an Android version or because of lack of SD or lack of color or what have you. Now, they do have you covered with Google Play, and it doesn't matter what you think. My opinion is wrong. Your opinion is wrong. Google Play is the best. That is an objective fact. It has everything. People will always say, I want a Kindle Scribe because I want access to the Amazon ecosystem. Well, I can tell you, go download Kindle on this. This is better than a Scribe. Now you got yourself a better Scribe. Done. I mean, there's not really any arguing with that. Although in this case, the pixel density is different, sure, and the overall screen size is different because the Scribe is a 10.2, this is a 10.3, but that's neither here nor there. What I mean is you could download Barnes & Noble, you could download Kobo, you could download Sony Reader, you could download Amazon, and use whatever ecosystem you want straight out of the box on this. You don't have to be stuck with one specific set of available books because this allows you to get anything. Do you want color? They have a color variant called the Air 3C. Just get this if you want color. And it has actually a better screen overall in terms of its resolution, but Google Play is invaluable nowadays. How does the degradation of nearly 80 ppi affect ebook reading? I will tell you that it's really not that noticeable. Now, you could say that, well, what if I put a gigantic black circle on here, that's it, and then I put a gigantic black circle on something that's 300 ppi, and then compare it and look at the edges? Sure. Well, then, if you're taking it to that degree that you need to worry about pixel density, then that's all for you. But for the average person looking at this, you're not going to be scratching your eyes and massaging the bridge of your nose saying, oh, I can't see it, where's my spectacles? This is totally viewable. It is a respectable amount of pixel density. Is it 300? Well, no. I mean, it's not. It's mathematically speaking, it is less, but it doesn't really affect the end result. Here in the ebook reading experience, you can see here, you do have all the abilities to change your font styles, your font size, your line spacing, your margins, and everything in between. Also, if you feel like this is either a little bit too blurry, too much refresh, too less refresh, remember you can go all to these settings here over to the eink center, and you'll see that really you're not going to be, at least with the naked eye, without any sort of microscope, or you get this under some sort of macro lens, you're not going to be able to see any visible difference between this and something that lists itself as 300 ppi. The reading experience is safe. Do not worry, it is not going to be a deal breaker for the average person. I sometimes wish I could go into these reviews and not know the specs, in a way, because now my initial thoughts are a little bit influenced by the fact that this has almost a third less pixel density than its competitors. I almost want to say it doesn't feel as crisp as other units, but I don't believe that's fair to say. It looks dang near perfect compared to anything else in its class. It might be a sales point for this to have X amount of screen pixel density, resolution, etc. But remember, you're dealing with e-paper, and you want it to be as crisp as possible. And I feel really no degradation between a higher count and this one. It looks beautiful. The blacks are completely dark. The curved edges of the speech bubbles look fantastic. There's really no major negatives. Now, you remember, you are listening to me talk about it through a camera into your devices at home, through your ears, so it's just never going to come across the same as the naked eye. But take it from us, we've been in the industry for 16 years. I'm really not seeing a whole lot of reason to say, oh, I'm not going to buy this because this screen is just inferior to other screens. It really isn't. Now, this is a larger experience than the average manga, because manga in Japan is approximately 6 to 7 inches long and diagonal, I would say. It very rarely is this kind of graphic novel-y size, unless you get those big thick tomes from 7-Eleven in Japan, but for the most part it is a larger, more unnatural experience of manga for the most part, but you can find mediums in this country, at least, that have this larger print, but this looks perfectly fine to me. Unfortunately, as we said earlier, you only get the Pen Plus. You don't get the Pen 2 Pro. It's not that great. You know what I'm going to do for fun? I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to use the Kindle Scribe Premium Pen. I like this one. It's got the same tips anyway, so what's the difference? On the left, you have template, layers, canvas, shape, lasso, whole bunch of stuff. What I like about these guys is that their shapes, this is the thing I want to focus on, honestly, because everyone has a 10.3. Everyone's got the same tips, the same glass cover. It's really the blanket functionality across everyone, except things like the Fujitsu feels more like paper, the iReader is ridiculously fast, and some device manufacturers like bigme use active capacitive as subvariants. But what I want to say about Onyx is that no one comes close when it comes to shapes. Not shaping like iReader, but shapes. For example, if I'm doing some drafting and I want a square with a broken dotted line in red when you export, I can draw that right there. That would take me minutes on another device finding some sort of straight edge like this and saying, okay, well, it's time to choose my pen, and I'm going to go line, 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 and it's never going to look the same. That will never look like that in a million years. Furthermore, I'll do one more because I am enamored by these guys. Triangle, broken dotted line with a max color in a light gray. It's just insane how quick that can get done. And once it's down, it's down. and that is consistent, and it's just beautiful. I feel like more manufacturers should adopt that, not just a set of shapes, but exactly that. If you go to the top, you can add numerous amount of pens, which they kind of borrowed from Fujitsu, so that's not really anything new, but it is quite nice. You can do pencil in black, big line. You can do, let's just say, highlighter in red when you export, of course, and let's go one more just to kind of mix it up. Paintbrush in kind of dark gray. One more to keep everything different, shall we? Regular fountain pen with a light gray midline. Now you have 5 different pens and an eraser, and yes, even though this is the Amazon pen, you can still erase and it works perfectly fine. You get things like fill, gesture removal, which doesn't really matter too much because even with it on, you can have 5 points on the screen moving around and you can still draw. So that's really of no concern to turn off the touch layer. You also have insert text, and look at the amount of things you can insert. This is crazy. Recorder, images, attachments, link to notes, link to files, links to websites. You can do hyperlinks, and you get text conversion along with all these additional settings and some comfort things like customized toolbar and change the position of everything. Layers we skipped over, but I'll touch on. You can add 6 layers total, which is 5 plus template, which means if I draw something on the page like this, go back to layers, choose a different layer, for example, layer number 4, go back to here, and I cannot affect or intrude on that layer. So it really does give you a good opportunity to separate your workflow, keep everything nicely layered and numbered and organized while you do your notes. I don't write very nicely. It's not the point. It's to show latency. It's to show the beautiful curves of the paint and how it bleeds away and how the pressure sensitivity on the page. Now, it's not the greatest writing experience, and no, it's not because of the pen. I can do the same thing. The pen tips are exactly the same. Amazon and Onyx and Ebook and everyone uses the exact same tips, so the tips themselves are interchangeable actually. So if you have a set of Amazon tips and you have an iReader X Pen 3, you can throw them in there. They're exactly the same thing. The overall experience is very slippery, and to some that's good. Some people like the kind of tablet-esque glass surface. I'm more of a pen to paper kind of guy. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I really do like a little bit of grittiness to my overall feel. So something like a Boyu, like bigme, something like a Fujitsu, something closer to a Remarkable. And a lot of the times we've seen these manufacturers say, well, you know what, you can get a screen protector that allows it to be a little bit more gritty, but then it increases glare and is just thicker and there's air bubbles. There's just no real way other than the OEM factory top coat layer. But in this case, it's probably a 6 out of 10 for realism, although the latency is just it's crazy fast. The same quality you would expect from an Onyx product, $100 USD cheaper than the C, and an overall capable unit, although a little bit redundant, this is still a winner. Although it only has 227 PPI, identical specs across the board as the color version, and it's actually 20 grams heavier for some reason. In the end, you can't complain too much, however. In this world of quick turnover and planned obsolescence in the industry, we've come to expect incremental upgrades regardless of manufacturer. If you guys want to know anything else, details are down below.